Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. Gonna give the same warning that I did last video I recorded that I've been having a little bit more pain today, so if I'm shifting around a lot, that's why. There's no rain coming in or anything, so I'm not quite sure why. This time I guess it's just Ehlers-Danlos being Ehlers-Danlos. But anyway, excuse me. But oh, I wanted to address something I forgot to last video. I'm in the same location that I've been recording in, the one that's not my room, or the couch with 20 million crocheted toys, amigurumi. All I'm doing is I'm sitting at the same table, but facing the other direction. So the little altar and the antiques that are usually behind me, they're now facing me. So now you have Last Supper picture, and, well, you can't see really. Off to the edge there are my dad's paintings of Mother Teresa, and maybe at some other point I'll let those be seen a little bit better. But, yeah, so to change location, I think this might be a little bit less cluttered than either the back to the antiques or, well, the horrific mess that is my room, my cave. But this video is for Big Book Summer Challenge. With first of all, the information for that challenge is down in the description. It goes from, I think she said May 24th through, I want to say September 2nd. It's Sue Jackson's challenge. I believe her channel is Sue Jackson something. Anyway, I have her channel tagged down below too. But this is her baby. It's for the summer to read. The challenge is to read books that are 400 pages or more. And genre doesn't matter. Encouragement is to read just at least one 400-page book. She has a Goodreads group, and then she let me create a storygraph challenge for this. I do not have that information down there, but I need to make sure that I add that now that I've created that challenge. Not sure why I have these here. I might have to create a separate video for this one. But, okay, for the big books that I've been reading so far, I haven't gotten a whole lot of this book of Terry Brooks. Oh, I think that whole table shook with that one. This actually has 3 Terry Brooks books in here, but the first one is the one that's over 400 pages. So that is the Sword of Shannara. The trilogy is called Sword of Shannara, but the first book is also called Sword of Shannara. Now, Elfstones of Shannara and Wish Song of Shannara are both less than 400 pages, but the first book is 431 pages. So, I think I finished the 2nd chapter. Now, this is a book that I have read in the past. What was fun about this is that I was getting a lot of very visual images in my head while I was reading it this time around, particularly when Al-Anon's going through the War of the Races, I guess. I don't remember if he calls it the War of the Races or the War of the Peoples. War of the Races. Sorry, I had it right the first time. So I was getting some very visual images in my mind with that, and there was a point where I couldn't continue reading until I stopped and I drew Al-Anon based off this description. Not showing that to you because I absolutely hate it, but at least I got the drawing out of my system. I find it very hard to work off of just what's in my head for drawing. I generally do better if I have some sort of reference to work off of. So I'm not very happy with my picture of Al-Anon, how it turned out, but at least I got it out of my system and I was able to continue reading. I'd like to read a little bit, sorry, this this book's heavy. It's my back's bothering me. So I'd like to read the third chapter maybe over tomorrow. That'd be kind of nice, but it all depends on that. This book's a bit heavy to handle at the moment. Now, this one here, Lindisfarne Gospel, Society, Spirituality, and the Scribe by Michelle P. Brown. Now, what's been interesting, I'm almost done, first of all, with the first chapter. The first chapter is quite long. Now, I did start this on May 22nd, but I talked to Sue, and she said that because the bulk of it is going to be during the challenge, because I only done the introduction like 2 days before the challenge started. So she said this can still count, which is great because this is a book I, was going to feel like I'd had to rush through it otherwise if I wanted to get something else into the challenge. Now, something that's been interesting for me for this book has been that Michelle's mentioned that there's been too much emphasis. And she mentioned this, I think, in the Bead book as well. The Bead book is, what's it called? Not the philosophy of everything. The theory of everything, according to Bede. I think is what the book that was. I'm so sorry, guys. I believe that was the name of the last book that I read of hers. The theory of everything, according to Bede. So, in that book as well as this one, although she goes into it more in this one, is the idea that historians seem to make a bigger emphasis on the Celtic versus Roman, like more of an ethnic concern when it comes to church versus more of a how do I say it? She says it better. Let me find it. Okay, so the background to and resolution of the conflicts they're talking about Easter focused upon the Synod of Whitby was evidently complex when not governed by the overtly simplistic nationalistic complexion with which it has been imbued in modern scholarship, in which Celtic opposed Roman and Roman won. And it's talking about how it was actually a pragmatic decision and how this goes into detail for that even more than the book she wrote about Bede. And she gives an example of how the fact that, for example, the bank holiday for Greece, I think it was for Greece, was different than in the rest of the, it's over here. She's talking about how the I think it was a bank holiday for Greece was different than for, I want to say it was the rest of the EU, and how it's going to have to be, if it hasn't already been addressed, it's going to have to be addressed so that way for business dealings that everyone's on the same page. And she's just showing that as an example of some ways where something that might seem unimportant and simple, oh, it's just a date, could actually have wider reaching repercussions outside of the religious realm. And I can't find where she talks about it right at this second. Oh, here we go. So it's on page 31. So she says that one recent event that perhaps helps us sharpen our perception of extra-religious aspects of the problem is the dilemma faced by the European banking community upon the reception of Greece into the EU. Its banks naturally observe the Greek Orthodox calendar for their bank holidays, and these, of course, do not correspond to those elsewhere in the European community, occasioning disruption and trading disadvantages. At time of writing, Greece has been given 3 years in which to come into line with EU practice. So she mentions this to compare it to how having Easter, the same across the board for the Catholic Church could have similar repercussions. For example, King Oswy, he and his wife, Anfled, I'm never sure how to say that, they celebrate Easter on different dates. Oswy was more in line with the Celtic way of doing it, and his wife was more in line with the Roman way of doing it. So you have points where he might have already celebrated Easter and therefore was feasting, where she was still like in Holy Week or maybe even farther back in Lent. So they were still fasting. So it would cause a level of disruption even at court, and not to mention any of the effects outside of the court, where you don't know where a person might be in what they can eat, how it would affect various different trades, etc. So I thought that was a very good perspective that she brought in there. And this is something that I've found has been a strength of Michelle's. This is why I am so enthusiastic for her writing and why I aim to pick up most of her books. Now, she's very bad for me because she recommends great books for me to read, and so I end up picking those up too. But yeah, I am very close to the end of the first chapter, which is exciting because it's quite a huge chapter. And I've been, reading it for a while. But yeah, if we have just finally reached, so she was giving, prior to this, setting the stage. Okay, this is what the world around Lindisfarne looked like. This is what the monastic community was like. This is, these are the people who would have the scriptoriums, who would be writing things up. These were the things that were important to them. Now she's coming into why, first of all, were the Lindisfarne Gospels written at Lindisfarne? And then she goes into things that go for or against that. Then she goes into the controversy, for lack of a better term, at a certain period of time. I want to say it was in the 1800s, although I'd have to look it up to see for sure, where the British were attempting to, almost like they're trying to strip Ireland of any claim to some of the beauty of Christian culture by trying to claim retroactively that certain texts came from British origin versus Celtic, and therefore, since it had the Germanic influences, somehow that meant that, it was better than, and that, the Celtic couldn't have something that good. It was very elitist. It was a way to try to bring the Irish down a bit. It was based in anti-Catholic feeling, and this isn't me just saying that. This is something that actually was brought up at the time, because there was a huge issue of anti-Catholicism during that era. And actually, it's only been fairly recently, I want to say in the past year or so, that old laws have been stricken off the books. I want to say before she died, Queen Elizabeth II struck off the books very old legislation that said that Catholics could not marry into the royal family. Now, I can see where there might be a difficulty with that anyway, because the ruler of the monarch of England is the leader of the Anglican Church. So the Queen, when Queen Elizabeth was alive, and then King Charles now. So I could see where actually there would be some difficulty if you had a Catholic marrying in, because, that would mean that they would have to change religion, because a Catholic can't accept that whoever the ruler is as being over the Pope. So that would be, even though it was probably good to take a law like that off of the books, I don't think it's going to be an issue where you might see someone who is a practicing Catholic want to marry in, not unless you have something where allowances are made for that person. I'm thinking of, was it Henrietta Marie? No. There was a Catholic, I want to say it was Henrietta Marie. No, I'm not right. Hold on. Because I was reading the book, let me bring it up. I was listening to it last year and I didn't finish it because I got busy. It was one of the queens of England who was allowed to bring her priest with her. It was one of the sticking points. If she wasn't allowed to continue practicing her faith and be able to bring her priest with her, they would not go ahead. Oh, it was Henrietta Maria. I should trust my memory. She wasn't going to go ahead with the marriage. So if they could work something out like that. But anyway. So it was brought up at the time where there was this controversy going on about whether or not to accept the Lindisfarne Gospels or any of the Gospels that were found at the time, any of the illuminated manuscripts, if they could have been Celtic in origin. So it talks about how, it might not even be as simple as that, how there was a lot of sharing of scribes, materials, resources, styles, etc. between Northumbria and the Celtic Church, Rome itself. All these different sources were being used, so it wasn't just Celtic versus more of a Germanic influence in Britain. It was all more of a melting pot, and that's going to lead her to talk about the Lindisfarne Gospels. Since Lindisfarne Gospels, as I recall her mentioning in the book on Bede, has a lot of different influences to it. So we're headed into the meat of things. Now the final one, and probably the one I've been reading the most because I can do this generally without as much focus as I can with a fiction book or even the Lindisfarne Gospels, because I want to finish another medieval book before I continue going hardcore with that one. I've been reading Disjointed. This is Navigating Diagnosis and Management of Hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome and Hypermobility Spectrum Disorders. So, this is thinking about it. Actually, I might stop this here and go on to a video with this by itself because this might not be everyone's cup of tea. Yeah, I think I might do that. I will touch briefly though. I'm so close to finishing this. I'm about 30 pages away from finishing Painted Prayers, the Book of Hours in Medieval and Renaissance Art. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. Some absolutely beautiful things in here. Like I saw the Black Hours in that other Illuminated Manuscripts book. I think it was Illuminated Bible that I read earlier this year. So, very close. I did pick up, and I didn't grab my more modern version, but this is the Little Office of the Blessed Virgin. So it was changed. It was readjusted after, I think it was Vatican II, so it was 1960s, that they revamped it, made it more like an office that kind of lined up in style to the Liturgy of the Hours, so it had its own psalter connected to it in a different way than is here. It just was it's now a different setup, has different psalms. Night prayer is a bit different. All the different parts are different. Now this one is a lot more similar to what they had in medieval times. The author said that he couldn't really find, I think it was he really couldn't find very easily an old version of the Little Office of the Blessed Virgin with the Office of the Dead. Now I couldn't find the Office of the Dead, but I could find an 1867 John F. Fowler edition of the Little Office of the Blessed Virgin, including instructions of how to pray it. And this is very similar to what they had in medieval times. even with having, well, they don't have it in, I was going to say they had the Psalms put into Roman numerals, but I think that was only the Kindle edition. So the Psalms match up, everything matches up for what they have. So if I wanted to follow along now, the translation they have is a little bit more of an older style. And this one is, I'm not sure what translation of the Bible they're using. It might be using, let's see. I want to say they might be using RSVCE versus, I bet they're using Dory Rams in printed prayers, because that's closest to what they would have had available at the time from St. Jerome, from his Vulgate. Let's see. I'm not sure if it says in here. Anyway, it's a different translation, but all the same psalms used. I just wanted to be able to follow along and have an idea of, oh, this is what they were praying, and just see. So it was kind of cool to have this as sort of a side resource. I've mentioned this before as an amazing side resource. I did find, which is kind of cool, I never knew, apparently our Lord of the Rings books with the writing on the pages, on the that has a name, hold on, because that didn't make much sense the way I just said that. There it is. Okay, so actually it's in G. Goffering, a method of edge treatment in which a binder impresses heated hand or roll tools onto the usually gilded head, tail, and foredge of a bound book. Goffered edges create a rich decorative effect to books' edges when closed. So where all of the more recent, really lovely examples of the Lord of the Rings books have that printing on the pages like this? So that's called, apparently, goffering. So I'm probably mangling that pronunciation, but I thought that was kind of cool. And this book has been invaluable. This is another Michelle P. Brown. I constantly use it. I had held off on getting it at first because I was like, oh, I don't need to know the technical terms. Yeah, I did. Okay, so now I'm going to end this video, and then next one I will record will be the one on Eller Stampos. God bless. Bye.